Okay, this is going to be called the Harvest of Death. Now, the Harvest of Death is a series of 6 photographs that were taken around July 6, 1863. Alexander Garter and his assistants, Timothy O'Sullivan and James Gibson, were on the first day's battlefield area of Gettysburg, and there were 6 photographs taken. The first one was called The Federal Dead on the Field of Battle of the First Day. Bodies of Federal soldiers killed on July 1st near the McPherson's Woods. View in the field on the right wing where General Reynolds was killed. Federal soldiers as they fell at the Battle of Gettysburg. Evidence of how the fight had been on the right in the Battle of Gettysburg. And the sixth and final, a harvest of death. These photos have been elusive and not able to be found. It's a photo and a series of photos of bodies taken at 2 different angles here on the first day. Now, in order to locate the position, it is necessary to locate terrain that matches the views from both the angles that they were taken in. Now, in 1975, historian, licensed battlefield guide, and author William Frasinito put out a book where he had been able to locate many of the bodies on the battlefield of Gettysburg. In that book, the Harvest of Death photos were left as elusive and not found. And over the next 40 years, different historians have put forth their theories onto where the locations. I'm going to go over basically 3 of those theories today. The first theory was that William Frasinito himself felt that the photo was taken near the Rose Farm on the Emmitsburg Road in 1975. The second theory that we're going to look at today was a few years back. A man named Jerry Coates focused more on the Spangler Farm, the Ecken Road property on the Emmitsburg Road. And then in May 2011, National Park Service Ranger Scott Hartwig put out a theory where it was on the first day's battlefield near the field where Reynolds died. And from where I'm standing today, his theory was more in this area over here. As that theory began to gain popularity on the internet, the theory was first advanced by a man named John Stewart in 1999 and immediately shot down by Bill Frasinito. Of course, Scott Hartwig in May of 2011 advanced the theory in a similar location, and then a man named John Cummings in 2012 had tweaked the position to the area near where I'm standing now. In the same time that that was going on, I myself had always believed that the photographs were where they said they were, near the field where General Reynolds died. This has been the Harvest of Death, Part 1 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Part 2 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And I am standing here in the area where I believe the Harvest of Death photographs were found. And in part 2, we're gonna expand a little bit on the actual location. Now, in 2012, when John Cummings came out to the site, which was the site of the original John Stewart and Scott Hartwig First Day's Battlefield, he did a more exclusive and in-depth study on the terrain. Because, as I said earlier, there's 3 things that you really have to match when considering this photograph. 1, the terrain must match from both angles. Second, you must have those soldiers identified to some type of degree. No, you may not have a name. No, you may not have even a regiment, but they are Union soldiers, and they wear a particular type of coat. And then thirdly, in the three things that you must have a feature or a landmark. Now, the reason Bill Frazanito was able to be so successful with the Rose Farm photographs was because number three, his features or landmarks were very obvious. Of course, the split rock at the Rose Farm, once you find the split rock, you find the location. Once you find that location, then you can then match up other photographs of those same bodies that are taken from different angles. And that's what he did. Now, when Bill Frazanito put forth this theory and also his books in 1975, it revolutionized rather the way Civil War photography it was looked at. In the past, such as the sharpshooter at Devil's Den, it was a sharpshooter at Devil's Den. It was able to be proven later that that photographers manipulated bodies, mistitled things for drama or for sales. And in that, Will Frazanito took off with that theory, which he proved in his book. Now, as good of research as that is, one problem it does present is that it begins to come to pass where all Civil War photographs, because of that one theory, are mislabeled or set up for drama. And that is not the case here at the Harvest of Death. When that photograph was named View of the Field on the Right Wing where General Reynolds fell, I can imagine photographers coming here a few days after the battlefield into this area here at the Lutheran Theological Seminary and not too far from the field where General Reynolds fell, which is behind us. And you'll want to go back and watch our video series, Forward, for God's Sake Forward, where we talk about the site where General Reynolds fell. Now, when these photographers come out to the site, one, Union bodies are still here. Why are they still here? Because through the Battle of Gettysburg, they were behind Confederate lines. Once the Confederates had swept across and these North Carolina troops passed this area through the Lutheran Seminary from July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, this was behind Confederate lines. There was no Union burial details able to reach here. And since Meade did not immediately progress off of the battlefield to pursue Lee after the battle, he waited a day or two. It is very plausible that these Union burial details didn't get here until July 6th or maybe even a little bit later. So Union bodies are here. Okay? As much of the research that Bill Frazanito put out in his book is excellent research, when you have a theory that takes a sticking point and then any other photograph that pops up automatically goes to that it's a mislabeled photograph, it creates a problem. And I believe that's what happened with the Harvest of Death series of photos. When someone said when Gardner put it out that this is the field where Reynolds died, it was automatically assumed, based on Frazanito's research, that this wasn't the field near where Reynolds died, that this was mislabeled for sales or for drama or etc. And today, many people who are in the Center for Civil War Photography, instead of looking at evidence like terrain, instead of looking at evidence like uniforms, landmarks, they're looking at a theory placed by a well-noted and well-respected historian, and ignoring facts. And this is what I'm here to bring my 2 cents to in this video series. This has been the Harvest of Death Part 2 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Part 3 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, and I'm looking here at the McPherson Barn, the Chambersburg Pike, and then spanning over to the Lutheran Theological Seminary complex. And we're going to go back here, and we're going to face this direction, and we're going to talk about 2 photos specifically in this series. Now, the other 3 photos, the Federal dead on the field, the Federal soldiers as they fell, and the evidence of how severe the contest was, those 3 photographs were taken all in this area. But if you look at the original photographs, and I will post them online, the photographs are really bad. They're really washed out. They don't bring any drama. They don't bring any sales if they're to be printed in a book. They were taken here on the site But these photographs did not work out for the photographers, and so they took two more, and those two more would be the views I'm going to talk about: view on the field where on the right wing where Reynolds near where he died, and of course the harvest of death. We're going to go to the field where Reynolds died photograph. I'm going to post that up right now. That photograph was taken from an angle very similar to where I am standing right now. And today, this is the Chambersburg Pike coming out here. The railroad cut is behind it, and over here is the Mary Thompson House that we all know as General Lee's headquarters. And of course, there is a modern hotel that is back here, and in just a couple years, that hotel is going to be non-existent, and General Lee's headquarters will once again stand pretty much alone as it did in 1863, minus the Dustman House and barn. We're going to get into that in a minute. When these photographers took this picture, I believe they took this picture, field near where Reynolds died, from this very angle. Now, one is the terrain. If you look at the terrain in the photograph, you do see a ridge slope on the south side of the railroad cut here. You see the railroad cut, and then you see a lighter portion as it goes to the north end of the railroad cut. And that photograph is taken at 64 degrees on the northeast. There's 297 feet from the railroad cut to the original 1863 tree line. And there is nowhere else on the Gettysburg battlefield, anywhere, that you get this exact same type of terrain with these slopes and these darker areas, and then of course the 297 foot line of 1863 tree line. The second thing you want to look at is the actual bodies in the photograph. These are Union soldiers, and they appear to be wearing Union frock coats, 9-button frock coats, of course with the 24th Michigan Volunteers. And the 24th Michigan Volunteer Monument is just beyond Herbst Woods, behind it about 100 yards. They were obviously attacked by the North Carolina troops, 26th North Carolina, on July 1st, on the morning of July 1st, 1863. And the 24th Michigan came right up through the area, here in the field where Reynolds died, and to here, and they retreated back to the Lutheran seminary. So this is obviously could very well be a fit that these soldiers in this photograph are dead from the 24th Michigan Volunteers, who were of Meredith's brigade. And a lot of times the brigade is called the Iron Brigade, but this brigade was actually Solomon Meredith's brigade of the 24th Michigan. And in keeping with our third proven theory would be the feature or the landscape. This is where John Cummings in 2012 comes into the picture. As he looked at this photograph and he noticed a tree here, he noticed a little orchard over here, he noticed something on the right side of the tree, and again I'm going to post the picture, and just to the right side of the tree is what appears to be a roof with a chimney and of a stone house. And that is the evidence, that is the feature that you need to identify where the location is. John did speak of this very much so on his Spotsylvania blog, and he did a great job with the postings, even though he came under a lot of criticism from members of the Center for Civil War Photography, rather. He continued to adjust his positions, and it was a theory, and he said it very well. Maybe some of his older posts or his older theories were a little bit off as far as the exact positioning, but it was right church, wrong pew. Okay, but once everything got tweaked, you can see what appears to be General Lee's headquarters, or the Mary Thompson House, in the photograph. And it is very, very evident. If you looked just to the left behind the Mary Thompson House, you will see another building. That building actually would be the Dustman Barn, the barn for Caspar Henry Dustman. Now, Caspar Henry Dustman had a home that sat right here on the Chambersburg Pike. Today, where you see the Appalachian Brewing Company business, his house actually sat on the foundation of what is the Appalachian Brewing Company. And behind it was his barn, which is just behind the hotel, or the little tiny building that you see today, which actually is a hotel room. And we're going to look at that and prove that on a later video. This has been the Harvest of Death series on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.